On today's episode of the MilCom Founders Podcast, we'll meet Kevin Milgram, a legal advisor who specializes in guiding emerging growth companies and investors through formation, venture capital financing, and mergers and acquisitions. Kevin represents innovative clients across defense and dual-use technology, aerospace, cybersecurity, and software sectors, with a particular focus on supporting military veteran-led startups as they scale and secure funding. His distinguished military background includes service as a U.S. Air Force officer, where he contributed to diverse missions spanning cyber operations, unmanned aircraft systems, and B-1B bomber operations, developing the strategic thinking and operational expertise that now serves his legal practice. Beyond his corporate work, Kevin demonstrates his commitment to the veteran community by representing nonprofit organizations serving military veterans, including We the Veterans, combining his legal expertise with his passion for supporting those who have served.
Welcome to the MilCom Founders Podcast, where we champion and celebrate military community business founders. In each episode, we will talk with a MilCom business founder to learn how they work through various obstacles and opportunities in business and in life. I'm your host, Rod Loches. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to the MilCom Founders Forum podcast. I'm your host, Rod Loches. Each of our conversations is designed to champion and celebrate a military community founder while inspiring and educating our community. Today, we get to hear the inspiring story of Kevin Milgram, an Air Force veteran and an attorney, and his wife's a very brave lady. She's also Shelby, or her name's Shelby, and she's the mother of 4 children. So I look forward to hearing about that in a minute here. But welcome to the show, Kevin. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Rod. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, just taking a step back, who is Kevin Milgram? Just in a nutshell, just short and sweet.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm a dad. I'm a person of faith. I'm a military veteran, and I'm a supporter of the startup community in general. So that's at my core. That's who I am, and but most important to me is definitely faith and family.
Fantastic. So, I think you just asked my next question. What are you passionate about? I'm sure it's going to be your faith and your family. But what else are you passionate about, Kevin?
Yeah, my passion is really helping fellow veterans. Like many of us, we hang up the uniform and we're not quite ready to be done with service. So for me, I just crave that element of service, and my personal passion is just helping fellow veterans navigate this crazy startup world, and help provide advice and support wherever I can. So that's really what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, it is amazing, Kevin, the ethos of service that we see from so many of our veterans, and so many different ways. In many ways, we never even see it or hear about it, but it is so strong in the veteran community, and especially the veteran startup community, about their missions of helping people. Is just amazing. That's for sure. So,
Absolutely.
why the Air Force? How did you end up joining the Air Force back in the day, as we might say?
Yeah. So for me, I was later on in high school when 9/11 happened. I didn't know anybody in the military, didn't have any family members in the military, never really thought about joining the military. It just wasn't something that was on my mind. I thought that I would go to undergrad, go to law school, and be a lawyer. That was my goal.
Wow.
9/11 happened. It inspired me and encouraged me to serve in some capacity. I felt like I had the ability to do it. And so I should. I explored a bunch of different options, kind of flying blind a little bit. I talked to recruiters. I thought about enlisting. I ended up being convinced to commission as an officer. So I explored some service academies. I was a little bit late in the game as far as applications for service academies, but ended up deciding to go to University of Maryland, and took a look at the ROTC programs. And candidly, I kind of just fell into Air Force ROTC. It was a really established, seemed like a really great program at University of Maryland, and it was, and I think it still is. And I just decided to pursue that,
Uh-huh.
and it was looking back on it, it was a great decision. I have no regrets.
Fantastic. Now, where did you grow up in Maryland? Where did you grow up?
I grew up outside Philadelphia, but moved down to Maryland during high school. So decided to take that in-state tuition at Maryland, and ultimately that was another good decision, I think.
Uh-huh.
I still have a lot of friends from Maryland, both in and outside the Air Force world. But yeah, it was a tremendous experience, and ROTC. I felt like for me, it gave the perfect mix of military and also civilian, and it kind of mirrored what we see on in stateside bases, where of course you have your military community and families and everything, but you also have folks who are not affiliated with the military and who are civilians, and you're interacting with them day to
Yeah.
day as well. So for me, it was a great experience, and kind of gave a good mix of both civilian world and military world.
Wow. Well, being a married man with a beautiful wife at home and four kids, how do you balance being a hard charging attorney and also uh, your family life? That's got to be and your health. And how do you balance all that?
Of course, I mean, I learned early on in the Air Force in terms of leadership skills. Take care of people, and people take care of the mission. And that I think it applies equally to ourselves. Of course, we have that service before self mentality, and we're very mission driven. But at the same time, I recognize that taking some time to unplug and being present with my family is just so important. And I think it makes me much better at my job when I'm able to do that. So I just make it a priority to take care of myself in that way, and to take some time to take care of myself from a faith perspective, from a health perspective, and to be present with my kids and my wife.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's amazing the younger veterans such as yourself, how many of you men and women just absolutely understand the importance of taking care of yourself because just like the old saying goes, you got to put the mask on for yourself before you help anybody else out. So it's really great to see that ethos running through so much of the younger veterans that are out there today. It's fantastic. So so you joined the Air Force, and tell me a little bit about your time in the service. You were in 11 years, I think.
So I was active for 5 years, and then I
Wow.
spent another 2 or 3 years as a reservist. But I was really really fortunate because I got to experience a lot in the Air Force as far as the different roles that I was in. Everything from pilot to unmanned aircraft community to I served in a public affairs role and a security role, and as a reservist at Cyber Command
Huh.
as a mission planner. So I really, in a very short period of time, I got to experience so much, and saw I have some of my best friends who are still in the military, who I met in the military, and just have the utmost respect for them. And it was for me, it was a life changing experience. It really taught me a lot about leadership, about mission focus, about accountability, and that carries through today. And I think it's probably the same for many veterans, where
Yeah.
they develop these skills, and they obviously have a certain drive coming into the military, but in the military you really get to hone those skills that are really transferable and valuable in the private sector.
Mhm. Did you say you were a pilot as well?
I was, yeah. I went in, commissioned as a pilot. Went to pilot training at Shepherd Air Force Base. It was an amazing program that combined U.S. and NATO partners. So it's a very very unique program that is still top notch to this day, and trains some of the best pilots in the world.
Fantastic. And that's pretty amazing. I didn't realize you were a pilot as well. A man of many things, many stories, that's for sure. So, speaking of stories, what is a story from the military that you see that military founders would appreciate and learn from in regards to their business? Everyone has so many of them, but what's one or two insights that you have that you can share with the community?
Sure. I mean, I think back to a story when, this is actually when I was doing security work, and I'm really, really proud about this role because this is the role where I got to lead the most, the most airmen. It was about 100 airmen that were under my responsibility, and we had a really demanding mission. And it was a role that typically, you're held up in an office, you're doing typical, officer administrative type stuff, but I really had an interest in my airmen and wanted to make sure that um, that I demonstrated that that I'm not above anything. I'm right there on the ground with them, doing the same job as them. So I decided that over the course of a couple of weeks, I would in addition to my day job and my officer responsibilities that I still needed to do, I would go out on the midnight shift with the airmen, spend the entire shift with them, and again over the course of a couple of weeks. So there were some, there were uh, probably about half that time I wasn't really sleeping at night. I was going out and doing, and this is, of course I was younger then, and
Uh-huh.
was able to bounce back from that probably easier than I could now. But I was able to learn a lot during that time about what I could do for my airmen to help them accomplish the mission, what they needed, what was going on in their personal lives, what was, what were the barriers for them that, if removed, would allow them to do a much better job and to be able to take care of what they were supposed to take care of. And at the same time, it was a reciprocal type of arrangement. It was a trust building exercise, really, and
Hmm.
demonstrated for the airmen that, hey, I'm right there with you, and I'm here to help you. I'm not here to to set down rules, and when you're in trouble you come see me. That's not what this is. Of course that's an element of it, but for the most part I'm there to help them, and I'm there to, I'm
Hmm.
not, it's not an opposing thing. We're one team. So I think that that's something that I carry forward today as a professional, and making sure that everybody around me is treated with the utmost respect, and we build that trust over time. But to accelerate that, it's really great to to really get in the trenches sometimes, and
Hmm.
to learn a little bit more about the details of what your team is doing.
Yeah, I love the concept of one team because so often when we talk to people that have never served in the military, they think it's all about command and control. And still, I mean, to me, it seems like leadership is much more about inspire, educate, help. And if you have to, okay, you do command and control, but leading from the front with inspiration, leadership, and example, it seems to be the real military teachings and learnings, I would say, what we see every day. Absolutely, one team. I'm going to remember that one. That's awesome. So, how does your experience in the military show up in your practice? How does that translate, or how often do you think um, about the principles that you learned in the military?
I think about them all the time, and I think that I use them every single day. It's sometimes difficult to translate military skills to private sector leadership and private sector growth, running companies. Whether you're in the service profession or startup founder, it can be difficult to translate those skills. But whether we know it or not, we're using those skills day in and day out. Whether it's the leadership element, the mission focus, the accountability, and working in a fast paced environment, like the startup world,
Hmm.
being strategic about things, and it's also deeply relationship driven. All these things, we've developed in the military, regardless of what our particular role was in the military. When you think back to the relationships that we developed, the leadership that we took on, the above and beyond the technical skills, which some of us come out with
Yeah.
tremendous technical skills. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people come out with tremendous technical skills, and that's great. But beyond that, there's a lot of what the private sector would call soft skills that we
Hmm.
have and we leverage every day. Sometimes we don't do the best job of selling those soft skills, um, but I see veterans in the startup community every single day leveraging those skills, day in
Hmm.
and day out to improve their companies and to grow. And likewise, on the investor side, investors use those skills day in and day out to develop relationships, scope opportunities, and
Hmm.
and really hone in on their thesis.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I kind of skipped over this. Want to go back. How did you go from being an Air Force officer to decide to actually go back into law school? How did that transition happen? That's kind of it's not the smallest transition in the world.
That's true. It was uh, my wife now, Shelby. We weren't married at the time. We were engaged. Um, we were up for another assignment, and we were thinking about where we might want to go, and it occurred to both of us that maybe I get out and stay in the reserves and go to law school. It's something that she knew I always wanted to do. It was something that from an early age, I always thought that I wanted to be a lawyer, which is also funny because I didn't have any lawyers in the family either.
Uh-huh.
Uh, there were no military, no lawyers, but it was something that I was always attracted to, and um, thought that it was something that I would really enjoy doing for a profession. So we were up for an assignment, and the timing was just it felt right. Um, we just made the decision to transition from active duty to reserve, and started prepping for the LSAT, the standardized law school admissions
Uh-huh.
test. And I definitely did some exploring as far as MBA versus law school, maybe both. Ended up deciding on law school, just to pursue my dream that I had since I was little. But um, it's a risky move, to forgo to forgo a salary and incur the costs of 3 years of law school.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we were willing to take that risk, and from my perspective, it totally paid off, and I'm certainly happy that I did it,
Yeah.
for my sake, for my family, and now I get to do what I love.
That's fantastic. So it's interesting because Kevin, you go from Air Force to being an attorney, um, and then how did you decide to go into the world of startups? I mean, you could have done anything when you graduated from law school. I mean, you could have practiced in any area. Why startups? And you're going to tell me you don't know anybody in startups ever either, right?
So for me, I was always attracted to that entrepreneurial mindset, and growing something, creating something from scratch. Of course, by the time I was in law school, I was a little bit older than most of my classmates, and by the time I got out of the military, I felt like we were ready to start a family,
Yeah.
and that made me slightly risk averse and not wanting to necessarily be a founder, but really craving, being around it and helping founders, advising them on everything from forming a company to growth, to financings, to eventual exit. I love the fast pace. I love the strategic nature of it. It's a little bit of Wild West where there are certain rules so to speak, but nothing like the public company world. It's very much a uh, contractual nature where it's just two parties agreeing on terms, and then we go forward. That that type of environment, I felt like it was I was well suited for it. So I love strategizing with founders and investors on deal terms. I love helping founders navigate things that may seem complex, but distilling it down to something that's fairly easy to understand, and giving them a sense of what's market. And
Yeah.
that's just that's stuff that's what I live for. That's why I get to work in the morning, is to advise these players in the startup community. And from my perspective, there's no better practice area than emerging growth venture capital.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So it's congratulations on your recent professional change or development. I think it's pretty cool how that happened. Can you share a little bit about where you are now and how you were able to step into this new role?
Of course, yeah. So a couple months ago, I was fortunate enough to join the partnership of DLA Piper. I'm based in Northern Virginia, but it's a global firm. Prior to this, I actually spent 10 years, my whole legal career at another firm, kind of a startup centric firm, where I'm deeply grateful to have honed my skills and really started to build at the prior firm. But this opportunity at DLA Piper was really tremendous for me. It's a phenomenal platform. They've got great really broad breadth of experience and deep bench of specialists, and all across the globe. And they're really set up well to um, not only serve like the defense and dual use technology founders, but also military veteran founders, which is something that's deeply important to me, and something that's very, very important to my practice.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was, for me, it was a natural fit. It's an opportunity to really build something in a tremendous platform like DLA Piper. So at the end of the day, it was a logical move for me, and really, really happy to be here. So far so good.
Fantastic. Well, Kevin, it's funny because I met you on the what I will call the give back trail, where we both work in one of the give backs, one of the nonprofits in the military veterans startup space, and you do a lot in that area. You want to talk about because there you are providing service again, service for the whole concept of give first is what I see you doing. Talk about a little bit about your give back there.
Of course, yeah, happy to. It's something that from the very beginning of my practice was really important. And uh, in terms of veteran pro bono work, most people think of um, the disability claims and that those types of things, which are incredibly important. For me, as a business lawyer, I really wanted to leverage my skills to help military veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. So my pro bono efforts really focus on that, and I think that there's a lot of well-meaning people who really highlight those veterans with disabilities, and who really need help on that front. But from my perspective, there's not enough people out there talking about veterans who are succeeding, who are using their skills to really make a difference in our world, whether they're innovators or investors or on the government side. There's a lot of phenomenal veterans out there who are really doing great things. And
Mhm.
to be able to be in these types of communities, with these nonprofits who help veteran business owners, it's a tremendous experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate it, all that you do for the startup community. That's for sure. Kevin, there's a huge need for innovation in the national defense arena. Um, can you talk about startups that you've seen succeed in the whole area of national defense, what it takes for them to succeed? I'd love to hear some of your insights, the importance of, let me make it more clear, the importance of startups to our national security. Can you share a little bit of your insights on that?
Absolutely, and it's really encouraging. Over in recent times, I think that there's been a recognition among between government investors, private sector businesses that startups are special. They're not anchored in a way that a lot of larger organizations are. They're free to take some risks and to really innovate, and recognizing that there's a lot of phenomenal programs out there now to leverage the startup community, and there's a recognition on the government side that we need to leverage the innovation that comes from the startup community in order to make these leaps in terms of national security and defense technology. So it's created a lot of opportunity, a lot of excitement among investors, and I think at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about bridging the innovative the innovative founders with technology that's applicable in defense and intelligence community, bridging that with the necessary capital to scale it. And right now, it's a great time to be an innovator in that space, because there
Mhm.
are opportunities and capital available for them to to really drive the mission, and to, at the end of the day, to make us all safe.
Yep, absolutely. I've heard the term used a few times recently, the valley of death, when someone wants to go to work in a startup or do a startup in the national defense arena. And, they have this great idea, and to get from idea to a federal contract or DoD contract that's producing revenue, that's going to sustain the company and the startup's life. Can you talk about that term, the Valley of Death, and how do people bridge that? What have you seen? Uh,
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to me, the Valley of Death just really speaks to the sales cycle, to the very long sales cycle when selling to the federal government. And at the end of the day, from what I've seen, the most successful startups who are in the defense tech and national security space are they have a product that is both available commercially, and also has applicability for defense and intelligence. That's kind of the holy grail. That's what investors are often looking for, something that is a company that's selling products both into the private sector and also into the government. And oftentimes that can give companies the revenue and the traction with shorter sales cycles with private companies, where they can sustain themselves while they wait for potentially very lucrative government contracts. But that's one way to do it. There's of course a lot of shorter fuse government programs and non-dilutive grants and things like that. The trick there is that there has to be something that really applies to the business itself. And I've seen a lot of founders make the mistake of pivoting specifically toward a particular cyber contract or an R&D type contract with the
yeah,
DoD, and they lose sight of the overall vision and mission of the company. They end up pivoting too early and focusing really on a particular relatively small contract at the expense of the long-term growth of the company.
yeah. That is it's a hard one, right? I mean, how does a founder keep the doors open and stay on focus and then know when to pivot? It's so many things, and I think that's where it gets back to having those advisors, the attorneys, the CFOs, whatever the case may be, to help them understand. I mean, like even with Doge, did you see the impact on Doge on any of your clients, or how did that impact some of your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen I've had clients who lost out on some revenue, but I also had clients who gained revenue because they had technology that's a force multiplier, and at the end of the day, it's actually less expensive for the government to leverage this type of technology. Oftentimes, some kind of AI enabled solution, and it actually allows them to cut costs by leveraging this type of technology. So there's a few clients I worked with who certainly saw a reduction in their revenue pipeline as a result, or at least some question marks. But then, equally, there were clients who, in particular, the most innovative technology,
Yeah.
they really saw an opportunity in it. So I think it just depends on the type of company and the type of product that they're selling. But in today's environment, I think that there are some real opportunities for innovators.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. The Now, when you're working with these startups, I mean, gosh knows how many you've worked with. How do you measure success in your endeavors with them? Do you do like McDonald's and say billions and billions of value created, or how do you do that? What's your measurement of success for the startups that you work with?
So for me, the founder's success is my success, and that is a little bit driven by the particular founder. Some founders out there are they have the idea that they're going to grow a company and they're going to take it public, and they want to be a public company CEO, and that's their goal. So from my perspective, once I understand a founder's goal for their business, then everything, in the back of my mind, everything I'm doing is with an eye toward that, to make sure that none of the risks that they're taking, and by the way, all startup founders are going to take risks. They should be calculated, and they should
Hmm.
understand what the risks are. And that's part of my job as an advisor, to tell them, hey, here are some risks. This is what other companies may have done in similar situations. Um, this from my perspective, is an acceptable risk, and it's not going to limit your growth or your opportunity to be acquired, to go public, to raise venture capital money. But going in eyes wide open to what the implications of these risks are. But everything is then focused on that ultimate goal. And
Yeah.
if goals change, then my approach might change on how I'm advising a particular company.
Kevin, have you helped take a company public?
I haven't personally. I've worked with companies who
Yeah.
do go public. I will say that the process of going public, very
Yeah.
rule driven, very very, it's a very unique skill set that
Yeah.
I don't have. But it's I work with a lot of colleagues who, their core practice is taking companies public. So when they're getting,
Got
when
it.
they're growing and they're getting close to that area, if they're like, hey, we're large enough, we think that our market capitalization is going to be X amount in a couple of years, and the idea, whether it's something that was intended all along,
Hmm.
or it could possibly be just another exit opportunity if they, candidly are just growing to a size where the number of suitable acquirers out
Yeah.
there is very limited. Then it's an obvious transition to start talking about and prepping for a potential IPO, and at least being ready for it and having that door remain open, rather than not prepping for it at the right time. And
Hmm.
at that point, it's their options are limited in terms of an exit. So
Yeah.
well, it's all about keeping doors open.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I was going to be surprised if you had helped people go public. because it's such a different, I'd say, mindset and phase of where business is. And I
It
think
is.
it's a very interesting point that for me, I found that you got to use the right attorney for the right thing. You can't use one attorney for everything. And I still wish that attorneys came with descriptors, Kevin Milgram, startup financing specialist, and or Joe Smith, IPO for technology companies. And I think it's such an important point to find the right attorney for the right thing and not try to use an attorney for everything. That's the law is such a big area of practice and so specialized that it takes a lot to do that. That's for sure. So, uh,
Absolutely.
Kevin, it's interesting because and our time starts to grow a little bit short here, but you've seen a number of founders overcome opportunity or power through opportunities or face obstacles and figure them out. What's a couple of those one or two examples that you've seen, especially from your perspective, where these veteran entrepreneurs have powered through and made things happen? I know you can't talk about their names specifically, but what's some of those learning points that you got to be, as a founder, that you've got to be aware of or looking for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about one client that this that had a great company, a dual use technology. They struggled for years to raise money. They knew they wanted to go the venture capital route. They had some angel investors who were kind of keeping them afloat while they built out their products, and they after years and years they ended up with a term sheet from a strategic investor. Now, part of the terms had some provisions about like a right to acquire the company down the road. And this was a strategic investor, so it was a corporate venture arm. And we strategized about it. We talked about it. We negotiated with the investor a little bit. Came to realize that this term wasn't going to go away. It was an absolute essential for this particular investor, at least with respect to this proposed investment. And they made the difficult decision to walk away from that term sheet. And at the time, I mean, if you think about it, he's struggling for years and years
Yeah,
to get this kind of term sheet. And aside from this one term related to the acquisition, which by the way can have a real impact on the value proposition for the company, but understanding the implications of this term, they walked away from it and they said, "Look, we're going to live to fight another day. We're not going to
yeah,
we're not going to wave the white flag here and take this capital when we know it's going to depress the value long term and it doesn't meet our needs as far as our overarching mission and goals." So they walked away from it, and sure enough, about 3 or 4 months later, they continued to build. They hit a couple milestones. They got a better valuation from another investor, much better terms, very plain vanilla, customary, founder friendly terms from another VC, and they were off to the races. And they've raised 3 or 4 rounds since then, and they've just done tremendously well. And I think back to that key point, that key strategic decision, and what a gutsy call, because they could have had cash in the bank
yeah,
in 30 days if they signed that term sheet. But they had the wherewithal to, and the advisors, of course, around them, myself included, talking to them about the implications and making sure that they understood the risks involved in taking this particular term sheet. And at the end of the day, they 100% made the right decision. But really, really gutsy call when they're running out of cash runway and
yeah,
in a great position as far as negotiating leverage. But they carved their own path, and we're very prepared for the negotiations, and had the wherewithal to walk away. And sometimes that's the best thing you can do.
yeah. That's a great story. Thank you so much. So, real quick, what's the question I haven't asked you yet that's going to help startup founders succeed? What's a couple points or a couple questions I haven't asked you yet? What am I missing? And you'll be like, oh, but just a couple things.
um, no, I mean, I think as a founder, I think that you should be focused on um, on really uh, having multiple paths available to you. So even if we all think that hey, we're going to make a business plan, we're going to execute on the business plan, and this is how we see things going, but understanding that rarely does that actually play out. There's pivots, there's decisions that are made throughout the life cycle of the company that change the nature of the business
Hmm.
and potentially the strategic goals of the business. So maintaining the flexibility to make those pivots is super important. And part of that, even if you're a company that where you think, hey, venture capital is just not for me, and it's certainly not for everyone. But if you think that, I would encourage those types of companies to not close the door on it. And part of that is to be organized, to be ready for capital at any time. And that's really the name of the game. And surrounding yourself with the right advisors is, I mean, that's to me that's the most essential part of running the business,
Yeah,
whether it's legal, financial, accounting, technical, you name it. If there's gaps, then you fill them with advisors that you trust, and
hmm
that's how you navigate and help. You can, if you have people who can help you see around corners, then that's the best you can do, because
yeah,
no founder can expect to be an expert on everything. They can only do the best they can to build the team around them. So having these true partners is just so important to making sure that the company is ready for whatever comes next, whether
that's
it's
right.
or not.
Yeah, it's funny, Kevin. It's almost like you set me up, which I appreciate. Is you saw my eyes light up because it is about being what we call a ready founder. Is the founder ready for every opportunity and every obstacle? And the time to get ready for that stuff may be boring, is before you need to be ready. It's you got to be ready before you need that capital, or before you need to do the pivot or whatever. And sounds boring, but that's where all the blocking and tackling, that foundational work of building a valuable, sustainable business comes in play. The right accounting system, the right advisors, the right X, Y, and Z, and even personally, making sure that your credit is ready. So you've got to do all those things because people do check people's personal credit, because it's a good reflection of who somebody is and how they will manage other people's capital. So it's very true. Very true. Well, Kevin, what's your next big thing that you're working on that's got you so excited to come in the office these days? What's something new and exciting that you enjoy?
For me, having recently joined DLA Piper, one thing that really attracted me to this firm and this partnership is their commitment to the veteran community. And um, for me, I'm really excited about building that out in the veteran startup community in particular, and introducing DLA Piper and all of DLA Piper's resources to that community, who can really benefit from it. That's something that's really exciting for me. It's one of those entrepreneurial opportunities that I crave, and it's about building out the team internally and also leveraging the resources in the right way to remove some barriers for
Mhm.
for veteran startup founders that otherwise may prohibit them
Yeah.
from engaging a firm like DLA Piper, but offering off the shelf resources, special arrangements with veterans, and then just continually promote top veteran founders and introducing them to sources of capital. Likewise, introducing investors to this veteran talent that is, it's certainly not a charity. It's a phenomenal bet to bet
Hmm.
on a company that's led by veterans. So from my perspective, that's really my goal in the coming years is to build that out at within DLA Piper, and I'm really excited about it.
Fantastic. Great question that you just brought to mind. Who are one or two military veteran entrepreneurs that have inspired you and said, "Hey, this is pretty cool"? Um, Anybody come to mind?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them, but given that the last time we saw each other in person was in Bentonville,
Hmm.
I'll probably say Sam Walton is somebody who about halfway through his book, but he's incredibly inspiring. Obviously, an older veteran, but the principles that he used to build a company based on his vision and values is I think applicable across the spectrum,
Yeah,
including with respect to high growth technology companies. And he's someone
yeah.
who served and who didn't really get started in earnest until much later in life. And I think that's incredibly inspirational to me. And I know a bunch of other veteran founders who similarly look to examples like Mr. Walton to see what real success looks like, and for him beyond the success of the company and
Hmm.
of Walmart, it's a lot of it is is really the value the value driven business that he created. And I think that we can all look to those types of examples for for real inspiration on
Absolutely.
how we view our own businesses.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're enjoying the book. I recently read it myself. In fact, it started me off on reading a series of veteran founder books about veteran founders. And Fred Smith at FedEx is another great story to read. I'm almost done with that one. I've really enjoyed that book as well. So, hey, Kevin, I want to say thank you so much for your time today. But one question: when people need to get a hold of the startup attorney, Kevin Milgram, how do they do it?
So you can go to DLA Piper's website and look me up, Kevin Milgram, Milgram. I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me. Regardless of whether you want to engage formally or you just want some advice, I'm always happy to lend an ear and to give you any thoughts. So feel free to reach out. Happy to help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Kevin. Thanks for joining us on the MilCom Founders Podcast. If you know a MilCom founder with a story to share, reach out to us at milcomfounders.com. For each guest on our show, One Degree Financial donates $100 to the Dick Loges Veteran Entrepreneur Scholarship Fund, supporting education for children of a MilCom business owner. Stay ready.